two. Testing 1 2. 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 Testing 1 2.
The Securities and Exchange Commission stand this afternoon. We will be starting our discussion shortly. In the next 5 minutes or so, we should be ready to go. Moderator, is that okay? I think we'll meet the 15-hour mark then. 5 minutes. Okay, good afternoon. I think we're almost ready to start. Welcome again to the SEC stand. My name is Mubanga Kondolo from the Securities and Exchange Commission. I will be taking you through the program for today. We have a very interesting panel discussion dubbed Innovative Financing for Enhanced Energy Access. And with us today, we have a distinguished and diverse group of panelists representing both the public and private sector. Government is here. We have cooperating partners as well as financial sector specialists. So I think we will be benefiting from their expertise and insights into this very important topic, especially amidst the energy challenges that we have currently in the country. So without further ado, I will quickly run through the program. I hope everyone has had a chance to register. We have online participation also, and we anticipate that it will be an interactive session, not only here, but with our virtual participants as well. We will be having welcome remarks from our partners who we have collaborated with for these panel sessions. That is the Zambia Institute for Policy Analysis and Research, followed by the actual commencement of the panel discussion, which is being moderated by Ms. Mulima Nyambe Muvanga. Funny enough, my wife's name is Mulima and I'm Muvanga, so we always joke around it. Yeah, we will have a question and answer session coupled with the open discussion as well. It will be good to also get your perspectives, not only to ask questions, but to get your insights around what you think the subject matter holds relevance for. We'll also have a networking session and refreshments, and finally the end of the program. At this point, I will invite Mr. Nazir Pando to come and give some welcome remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mwanga. Good afternoon, everyone. I must have had a really good lunch. The good afternoon response was quite good. My name is Nazir Pando. I'm going to give the opening remarks on behalf of the Zambia Institute for Policy Analysis and Research. And first and foremost, just want to thank our panelists who are obviously very experienced, capable, and very knowledgeable about the topic at hand, which is innovative finance for enhanced energy access. As we know now, energy is the topic of the day. It's even surpassed mining. So it is critical for us as an institution to discuss these pertinent issues. For those who don't know, the Zambia Institute for Policy Analysis and Research is a public think tank that's mandated to provide public policy advice through research and analysis to the government and other critical stakeholders from private sector, CSOs, academia, and the like. So our job here to work with the SEC, who we're so happy to be working with in these public theories over the last days and going on till tomorrow, is we value very highly in public discourse discussions. We value very highly in capacity building, where we get to interact with different stakeholders as well as the public themselves to be able to understand these issues that they're going through. As you know, the economy is something all of us are affected by. You don't have to be an economist. You don't have to be an energy expert. You don't have to be a finance expert. All of these things is something everyone is going through. Load shedding, whether it's your businesses being affected, your homes being affected. So as ZIPAR, we value very highly in these discussions. So we are very happy to be here. We're very happy that we're facilitating this discussion. And you're in capable hands, and I'm sure you enjoy this discussion. So on behalf of ZIPAR, thank you very much. And for the panelists and for the moderator, all the best, and we hope to learn a lot from you. Thank you.
Thank you for those welcome remarks. At this point, I will hand over to our moderator, Ms. Mulima Nyambe Muvanga, who is a research fellow at the ZIPAR, looking at emerging markets. Thank you. Emerging themes, sorry.
Thank you, Mubanga. So, like Mubanga said, the panel is quite interesting, and For me, when we talk about energy access, I like it because now we are relating with the current energy crisis we are facing. And coupled with that, it always reminds people that climate change is real. Now, I want to give the context to this panel discussion, and then I'll allow the panelists to introduce themselves. We are facing an energy crisis, and when you talk about the energy sector, the government in the recent past and currently, or even presently, they are promoting renewable energy technology. So how do we get there? Financing is critical. In the studies that we have undertaken as ZIPAR, you'll find that bankability of energy projects is a challenge. Now we're talking about scaling up solar mini grids. And now we're talking about net metering. I think that's a gray area. Most people don't understand what needs to be done in the energy sector. So we want to now unpack the innovative financing for enhanced energy access. I never have power at home nowadays, so it's pretty difficult. And then when there's talk of the net metering, I'm thinking, where am I going to get the financing? The banks, I don't think, will lend me that much for me to buy the inverter and whatnot. So having given that background, I'm sure you're going to start thinking about the questions after our panelists have discussed some of the aspects. I'll allow them to introduce themselves. So we can start with you, sir.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric Musama. I'm an engineer under electricity section in the technical regulation department from the Energy Regulation Board. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here and listening to us. I am Lenga Chanda. I'm representing or wearing two hats today. I'm the country director for Namene Solar Zambia. I'm also the vice president of the Solar Industry Association of Zambia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Philippa Magasu, and I'm with the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment. I'm Senior Green Economy Officer responsible for projects and project proposals. Thanks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Afternoon to those of you joining us online. My name is Benson Wileli, and I am the Technical Specialist for Biodiversity Conservation and National Coordinator for the Biodiversity Finance Initiative at UNDP.
Thank you. I'm sure you agree with me that this is a rich panel, and we want to discuss the ways in which we can grow the energy portfolio. And this is, of course, the access to financing for the independent power producers, and then even just understanding what the forecast is for the energy sector going forward. That's why we even have the Energy Regulation Board here. But I want to kick off the questions with the Ministry of Green Economy. We are transitioning to a green economy, so which means we need to green the energy sector. Now, what does that look like? And Madam Philippa, so we know that in the energy sector, the major sources are electricity, wood fuel, which is charcoal, and then also the petroleum products. So I would just want you to speak to the Green Growth Strategy, which was recently launched. What do we envision the energy sector to be, and in terms of greening the energy sector, like saying greening the energy sector, and if you could also just unpack the 4 pillars of the Green Growth Strategy, so that even as we are speaking to the innovative financing for enhanced energy access, what does a green energy sector look like? Thank you.
Thanks, Mulima. So yes, we recently launched the Green Growth Strategy in April of this year. And I should highlight firstly that the Green Growth Strategy will serve as a blueprint for our transition as Zambia into a green economy, and is anchored on 5 pillars. Well, the last one is, it's anchored on 5 pillars. So the first pillar, I'll speak to the pillars first, Mulima. The first pillar is resilient and climate compatible growth, which focuses mainly on economic growth and minimizing the impact of climate change while maximizing opportunities for low carbon investment. And we are looking at targeting at sectors like agriculture, water, energy, infrastructure, tourism. And the second pillar is the enhanced resource efficiency. And here we are looking at, sustainable consumption of natural resources and the production processes. We're looking at preventing, reusing and recycling of waste, circular economy, the new concept now. I think it's a buzzword and something that is really important. And we're also looking at sectors like transport, manufacturing, infrastructure, and so forth. The third pillar is the enhanced natural capital. And here we're just looking at protecting, conserving, and also restoring natural resources. What do we gain? What can we gain economically and socially from our natural resources? And then the fourth pillar is improved inclusivity. So we are looking at the benefits of the economic growth. How do we sustainably benefit all the categories of society, especially the vulnerable people. And also we are looking at how we can transition with everybody, a just transition into a green economy. What skills need to be impacted in these new people, what needs to be available for people to be able to adapt into the green economy to survive, as we also transition. And the fifth one, we're looking at an enabling environment for greening growth. What needs to be put in place? We're talking of policies and regulatory frameworks, finance, mobilizing finance. We need a $10 billion, to implement the green growth action. So what do we need to put in place to be able to enable an effective implementation of the green growth actions? And then when you look at what do we need to consider in the energy sector as we transition into a green economy, I think top of the list is we need to diversify, the energy sources. I think everybody's a witness to what is happening and what climate change impacts can actually, result to. We're experiencing, I think, the waste load shedding, maybe. So, we need to diversify the energy sector, sources. We need wind, geothermal, solar. I think people are really adapting to the solar and the gas now. So that's also something, as you said, people are realizing that climate change is real and we need to think of alternative sources of power, and instead of just relying on hydroelectric power. And then also I think there's need for the enhancement of renewable energy technologies. And this will include, I think, developing finance and resource mobilization instruments. Benson is the master of that. I'm sure he can speak to it. But, well, we also need to implement policies and incentives for renewable energy development. I think there's also need to improve energy efficiency. I think maybe ERB can speak to it. I know as government we have developed an energy efficiency strategy and action plan. And I think this is to help us harness energy efficiency potential and also reduce energy costs and promote energy services. So I think with these we can be able to contribute resource productivity. And also I think there's need to facilitate private sector investment. I think there are many areas that have been untouched or not don't have enough access or don't have access at all, so the unsaved and underserved areas. And I think there's need to facilitate for that private sector investment. And I think as government, we are supposed to be in the lead with that, to ensure the private sector are able to, find the right climate to be able to make these investments. And I think lastly, on what we need to do as we transition to a green economy in the energy sector, I think there's need to build climate resilience around the energy sector. We're talking about infrastructure, infrastructure that can withstand the extreme weather events. I think in the past, when we had proper power supply, you would see the effects of what a heavy downpour would do, or a windy day, So I think there's also need to build climate resilience around the energy sector. So I think those are my few thoughts on your question. Thanks.
Green economy, you've made my job easy. I think that's what I want to ask the next panelist, the Energy Regulation Board. If you could just speak to the energy mix and specifically also sort of enlighten us on the current energy supply sufficiency. Is it sufficient to meet the demands of the increased production and productivity that we're trying to attain as a country? We want to become a prosperous middle-income country, and we are almost there. This is 2020 what? 24, and the clock is ticking. So I would really appreciate it if you could just unpack the energy mix and also talk about what we are looking at in terms of the forecast for the energy sector. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mulima, for that fully loaded question. We'll unpack it for the audience and those listening to us online. Probably to start with, we'll just give a picture of how our installed capacity is sitting, and then we look at probably individual components in there. So as a country, as at 31st December 2023, we were speaking to about 3,800 megawatts of installed capacity, and out of which about 83% is hydro. So we're talking of power plants like Kafue Gorge with installed capacity of about 990 megawatts. We do have Kariba complex there at Kariba 1,080 megawatts. We also have Kafue Gorge Lower power plant 750 megawatts. We do have Itej power plant. All these are hydro at 120 megawatts. Lunsemfwa has the IPP. They're also contributing about 56 megawatts in that. So this is the composition of the 83% we are seeing in that energy mix. We do also have about 8.7% from the 3,800 megawatts from thermal. And this is the Mamba power plant, 300 megawatts. We also have the solar component in there, just about 3.2, and HF4, 2.9, and 2.2 on diesel. So you may see how the numbers are dropping from the 83% to come and speak to 2.2 in still the diesel power plants. So with the focus of greening the energy sector, 3.2 is too low, the number to be speaking to in this scenario. So if you look at now the energy sufficiency of the country, our demand at the moment is about 2,400 megawatts. And from that 3.8, what we can only generate is just about 1,200 megawatts. Look at the gap. We are over 1,000 as deficit. And that's the road
situation on the ground. Chand, I think it would be good to come in after the regulator has spoken.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, I think it's clear that the focus now should be, we should be speaking to harnessing the variable renewable sources. The solar we're talking about, wind energy. I think this is where the investors should be focusing on. There's good intensity in the country. Studies have been done for wind, Pensulo area there in Serenge, you get good wind speeds where we can generate megawatts from there. In Petauke, eastern side, across the country, we've got good wind speeds. So variable renewable sources should be one of the focus areas we should be throwing in our weight in. But even before that, we should also look at probably base load plants, you know. Things like clean coal. Bamba 2 is coming. First of all, let's have enough base load. Mamba with another 300 coming, that's a positive. If we can have 3-4 of that, we are already talking of half our demand being catered for by the base load power plants we do have. And then let's have the icing from the renewable, and we're calling them variable renewable sources. From the technical point of view, they've got their own intermittencies, which you have to manage as the grid. So it will be good to focus on the variable renewable resources, but also let's put some investment in base load power plants. Thanks, Amuli.
Engineer Eric, I am glad that you've now said the magic word, investment. I think that's why we're here. So we've set the context of how we need to enhance the energy access. I think green economy also spoke about how we have, I think, the population, we have a lot that are unserved or underserved. So that's what we need to really focus on. But Engineer Eric, you said base load. For those of us who are not engineers, just explain before Chanda comes in.
Yeah, it would be good to put, you know, these are power plants where when it begins to generate, there's a lot of stability from them, in the sense that the graph is almost constant when they are running, when they've reached the optimal. So base load is where we can anchor as the main source of energy, you know. Say, for example, mining loads. We are going into ramped up copper production. So should these big investors in the mining industry depend on variable renewable sources without base load, it will be difficult probably to operate a network which is heavily anchored on renewable sources. Ours is a good combination. The 83% on the hydros will help in the intermittence. A small cloud cover may affect the network, but with the hydros, you pick up that and you even the graph. So it would be good to have these base loads, plants like Mamba, Collieries, such kind of a plant, Ndola Energy. These are, when they are generating at optimum, the graph is almost flat. You are guaranteed that you will have this kind of production throughout the generation life.
Goodbye to load shedding.
Yes, if we get many of these base load plants, it's a goodbye to load shedding.
Yeah, that's what we want to hear.
Yes.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chanda, over to you.
Thank you. We can then earn carbon credits from it. So they promise to stop using candle and kerosene. We sign up with them, and then we're able to generate revenue from the carbon credits using that. So that's a bit on the Namene side. I'm coming in also as a Solar Industry Association Vice President. And on this front, basically we are there to foster a lot of use of renewable energy sources, largely solar. We're there to help both the government and the private sector be in a space where they create an environment that makes it easy for people to play into. So we are basically the voice that will address any concerns, raising awareness, speaking on behalf of the private sector, ensuring that we have quality products coming in. Because as you may be aware, right now there's been sort of like a loose fix in terms of how do we work around people bringing in more solar. And so while that is appreciated, there's a chance, and hear me very well, there's a chance that we will have lots of counterfeit stuff coming in, which might not be very beneficial. So we are there as the industry to make sure that we have quality standards being appreciated and people are actually bringing in products that are of quality. So that's basically where I'm coming from and sitting in these two hats. Driving to the question that you just raised concerning where should we be focused on, it might be a little bit of a bias because I'm coming in from the solar space, but first of all, we need to look at our solar sector. We know that we have a lot of sunshine here in Zambia and sub-Saharan Africa. There's a lot of potential for us to tap into this. So firstly, what I would say is we need to expand our solar power projects. It's interesting that we already have some of these in Zambia. We know of the Bangweulu, we know of one by CEC just in Kitwe. That's about a 60 megawatt project. I know it's projected to go into, I think, 190 or something, going into 2025. So far, they've done 60 megawatts, which is a plus. That in itself can light out about 135,000 households, which is a good step in the right direction. And just from that, listening to the deficits that we have, if we had more of those being launched, we start to see the gap reducing in terms of the deficiency of the megawatts that we need in the country. So expanding our solar power projects will be very, very key to get us to where we have to go. And this is medium to long term. Another thing to look at is mini grids. Mini grids play a very vital role in ensuring that at least even people in the rural areas are able to access electricity. We know we have the main grid, but where is the main grid? How far does the main grid spread? In areas where we do not have access to the main grid, it's an opportunity to have mini grids. And these mini grids then in turn feed into communities where it stops becoming about just using energy for watching TV or for TikTok, but it becomes energy for productive use. You start looking at how do I use this energy to become more productive and thereby growing our economy. So it's very key we factor in mini grids also, try to build that around. I know C4O, NG and some other players are heavy in that space. So I think it's where we need to be looking at right now. I also talk about wind energy development. That is obviously long-term because it's quite expensive to embark on. We have examples of countries that have done this. For example, in Kenya, we have the Turkana wind energy. It produces massive energy for their country, and we've seen that this has helped the energy space or sector within Kenya. So that's something that we should also be learning from. And sometimes it just takes learning from our neighbors. What are some of the mistakes that they've made in trying to implement this? What are some of the positives that we can pick and then use also as we try to bring in these solutions? Another key thing is raising awareness. You notice that many people are not too familiar with what's happening, for example, in the solar space. If we raise awareness, people understand the use, they understand that getting on the solar front is actually a positive thing, and in the long term, it can actually save you money. That's a good thing that needs to happen, and people need to know about this. And lastly, I'll talk about the battery storage systems, BESS. So battery storage systems is basically buying in your lithium-ion batteries, for example, but then this is at a larger scale where you connect this to the grid. So when your electricity is being generated, either using panels or using your wind turbines or anything like that, whilst the electricity is coming in, it's being able to supply to different homes. Some is being stored in those batteries. And when you're experiencing periods like now, that amount of energy that is stored in those batteries can then be used for the lighting. So we have a very, very long way to go. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. Some of these solutions I've given are largely medium to long term, but obviously in the short term, lots of awareness is very, very key. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I have a lot of questions, especially when you started talking about the standards, the quality of the panels. I think we'll have the conversation outside. So, so we seem to be aware as a country that we need to adopt more renewable energy sources and technologies. But the million-dollar question is, and I say million, maybe I should say billion, the investments. Where is the money going to come from? I mean, you are operating in this space already. I would have loved to hear the challenges that you faced in terms of accessing financing to just set up that. I think we need more players. I know you talked about NG and then C4O. So there are a lot of projects going on, but those are big players. So we have the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprise Development. How can we also ensure that the MSMEs get into this space, the renewable energy space? Because you talked about the mini grids, and we know at the moment it's only in rural areas, but I think we should now start having a conversation about mini grids in the urban areas. ERB, I hope you're listening to me. So I want Biofin to come in here. I think we've talked about the situation on the ground with respect to energy access. I mean, we know we have problems. We're experiencing it right now. What do we need to do? And how is the financial sector landscape looking like? How may it respond? And based on, I mean, yeah, Biofin. And so maybe just speak to that. And I'll still come back to all of you in terms of the investment aspects. So Biofin, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I was asked to speak briefly about Biofin and what we do. So I'll start with that, if that's fine. Essentially, as the Biodiversity Finance Initiative, our main priority or objective is to enhance financing for biodiversity, supporting conservation and essentially supporting the thriving of biodiversity. Biodiversity plays a very important role in the broader scheme of things in terms of the well-being of humanity, ultimately. And this then is plugged into the context of environmental stewardship, environmental management, but also into the climate change discussion, because biodiversity plays a critical role in that. So really our work is focused around enhancing the policy environment to support financing for conservation, and also working with different stakeholders and partners in order to facilitate for this financing through development of instruments or supporting the development of instruments, financial instruments to be able to do this, or policy reforms and that sort of thing. In this particular context, obviously, any form of energy installation, if I may put it that way, has to essentially be placed within a natural environment, right? So whether it's solar, wind, whatever it is, it has to sit within a natural environment, and that then has some implications in terms of ecological footprint and its impact on ecosystems and all of that. So that's really where our interest is, because there's a significant nexus between energy and biodiversity and nature and the environment. And so a lot of what we do then also impacts on this. So much so that if you look at the NBSAP the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan. Target number 5 there speaks to reducing deforestation by, I think, 25%. And one of the strategic interventions that's placed in order to help the government be able to achieve that is for us to support renewable energy development and uptake, because then that, mitigates deforestation and all these other negative ecological impacts. So just to give, I hope that helps sort of paint the picture of where we're coming in this conversation. So with regards to the financing components, I think finance plays a critical role, obviously. It helps be able to support the strategies like the green growth strategy and our efforts to diversify our energy mix as a country. And there's a lot of conversations you can have around finance. Obviously, we can talk around, accessibility. We can talk around the cost of capital, but I won't dwell too much on those. I'll really focus more around the instruments that are available. Maybe as I'm doing that, touch on a few of the other aspects. So there's really quite a lot of options. A lot, but a little. I'll say that carefully. So there's a lot of options, and I say it a little because I think that one of the biggest problems that is faced within the energy sector is the uniqueness of the projects themselves. So even though there's quite a number of options, not all of them match really well with the energy projects. If you look at the profiles and everything, right? So, for example, one of the characteristics of energy projects, and I'm speaking at the large scale first, before I go to the household level or the SME level, they tend to be very long-term in nature, right? And if you look at economies like Zambia, a lot of our financial sector is heavily skewed towards banking. And this is mostly loans, which are short to medium term. You'll be lucky if you can get a facility from a bank for anything more than 7 years in maturity. But if you talk to colleagues here, they'll tell you that a hydro project would take you anything from 7, 10, 15 years sometimes to develop. There's like the Inga Dam, which in the Congo, which is still being talked about now, many years. So that uniqueness makes it very difficult for some energy projects to access conventional facilities. So that leaves, for example, project financing as probably one of the options. But more specifically, I think talking about innovative instruments, green bonds, in my view, are quite well suited to support large-scale energy projects. Because one, the long-term nature that I spoke about, so you find that a green bond is long-term in nature. That's capital markets. That's specifically what capital markets are good at, long-term capital, 10, 15, 20-year periods, which you can't get in most of the other components of the financial sector. So that's one sort of area where there's a good match. The other one is a lot of the energy projects require a significant amount of initial capital outlay on front for the pre-feasibility studies, feasibility studies, the development itself. A lot of money has to be put up front and paid back over that long period of time. So a green bond will allow you to do exactly that. It allows you to raise this big chunk of revenue, relatively big, and then deploy it. And then you use those revenues that then come from the power purchase agreements that are signed over like a 20-year period, again, which is very good because it links very well with the green bond. You use those revenue streams to then be able to essentially guarantee your repayment of that. And then you could even then throw in the actual installation itself as part collateral to borrow, right? So you can see that they're very well linked and they match really well. So I think the green bond for me is a wonderful instrument. And then when you go specifically now into like renewable energy, it also allows you to attract a certain type of investor base that may not typically be the investor base that you would deal with in other non-renewable projects, right? And so you improve your investor base. Because also of the limited number right now of green bond issuances and on the other hand, the excessive supply out there globally that's looking for these green projects, you tend to see that it pushes your yields. So it narrows the spread of your yields. In short, it makes it a bit cheaper for you to borrow because there's a lot of money that's looking for the type of project that you're looking to develop, right? So I think a green bond is one of the instruments that is really well positioned to really support energy projects. And I'm not surprised that, even in our country, the first ever green bond that was issued was a renewable energy, to finance a renewable energy project, right? So for me, I think that's definitely one area or opportunity that we can largely explore. I was talking at the large scale level, but also at the sort of micro level with the households and the MSMEs. There's the green loan guidelines that are being developed. Well, they've been developed and are now being rolled out. So those green loans also sort of play a similar role, but at a lower level. So they enable households to be able to go to commercial banks to access these green loans. And the beauty with green loans is you can again attach them to cheaper sources of capital. If a bank is able to demonstrate to funders or to investors, and again there's a number of these out there looking to lend money to banks at concessional rates so that they can on-lend to support green growth at that level. If you can demonstrate that you're able to do that using these green loans, you can tap into markets that allow you to borrow at a cheaper rate. And you can pass that on to the consumers and reduce the cost of capital. So the high cost of capital, unfortunately, is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to access finance in the renewable sector and in other aspects of the economy. So the green loans also offer, I think, a fantastic opportunity for our nation to be able to fuel this green growth, as particularly in the energy sector that we're looking to support.
There's some hope. I sense some relief, but and thank you for touching on those aspects. What other work is being done? I know you've talked about your mandate, but so it means that you also support to some extent the creation of a conducive policy environment. So support financing. So what other work is being done since you're operating in this financial space?
No, so there's quite a bit that we're doing. As you may appreciate, there's quite a lot of different moving parts that have to be touched on in order to make this entire journey successful. So one of the other things that we're doing, working with the financial sector regulators, the Ministry of Green Economy, the Ministry of Finance, is developing what's called a green finance taxonomy. So what a taxonomy is in simple terms, it's a standardized classification system. And what it mainly, the role it serves is to enable you to be able to explicitly answer what constitutes a green action or activity or a green project. So there's a lot of ambiguity around what exactly is green. And with that ambiguity brings a lot of unscrupulous players who greenwash, where you're claiming that our activity is green when it actually isn't. And that then starts to deter investment from going into green sectors, which we don't want. Right? So with the development of this taxonomy that we're working on, we're going to clearly stipulate what is green. And it's a sectoral-based taxonomy. So there's different sectors, mining, agriculture, forestry, but one of them is also energy. Right? So in the energy space, and it breaks it down, what's a green, what does wind energy look like in the context of renewable energy? What does solar energy look like? What does geothermal energy look like? Bioenergy, all of that. So it breaks all of those down, even hydro energy. Of course, the larger scale ones, there's some issues around the ecological footprint. So what's the threshold? So it answers all of those questions so that when you as a developer go to a bank and say, I've got this project that I want to finance, and it's green, at least that's what you claim. They'll screen it through that criteria, and then they'll utilize that to be able to determine whether they can finance to you green finance, right? So that, I think, will unlock a lot of supporting initiatives into supporting the renewable energy space, which is very important. But also we're working on a broader strategy at a national level that's going to speak to how we're going to mainstream green financing into the financial sector. And by mainstreaming, all we're saying is we want to make the financial sector more responsive to the financing requirements of green activities, including renewable energy, right? So can we develop products? Can we upscale in terms of capacities of our financial institutions to be able to fully appraise an energy project when a developer takes it to them for financing? Because one of the challenges is someone won't understand. So they just say, this solar, no, it looks complicated. We don't understand it. We're not going to help you. Even when the money is there, right? So how can we breach that knowledge gap, the capacity gaps, the skills gaps that exist within our market, within our financial sector, in order to unlock financing towards renewable energy projects? So those are some of the things that we're working on. Hopefully then we'll be able to support all the other efforts by colleagues that are seated on the panel here with me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you've talked about what is obtaining in the financial sector. At least we are thinking about innovative sources of financing. I want Namene to go first on this aspect now that we've talked about how the green financing, climate financing landscape in the country is. So how can you, as private sector, I think based on what you also submitted, so how do you think we can leverage on the innovative sources that the country is now developing to respond to the climate finance impacts, and speaking largely to the energy sector? And then ERB can follow.
Thank you. I'm glad, as Benson was concluding, he mentioned something that's very key: strengthening institution capacity. This is very, very key for us to actually be able to get onto this green space. You realize that we have a lot of people or a lot of investors out there that would love to fund projects in Africa, but the biggest challenge is the lack of knowledge, or the lack of institutions having the full knowledge to understand how to do development of projects, what it is that is required. So it's very, very key for us to strengthen our institution capacities. So that's you conducting trainings, you understanding what are quality standards, you understanding what is it that we need to use in a space where this will actually get us investment. So it's very, very key for us to build our institutional capacity. And then also another thing that is quite key, he's spoken about green loans, but I think also green banks. It's practically almost the same thing. So where you have a bank that is receiving funding from a lot of investors, because when you're investing in something, it's easier for you to trust an institution that is recognized, right? So it might be quite challenging for, let's say, an individual to go and try and borrow funds or get funds from an investor without the track record. And that's why the green banks then form that sort of track record where you, as an individual, a bank is set up, or banks are set up as green banks, and then they're offering loans that are favorable for the market. I think also what's very, very key is affordability, because it becomes a bit challenging for us to access. So if one way or the other through the green banks, we find rates that are feasible or rates that are favorable for people to jump onto the green space, then that will be a plus also. Another thing is basically just utilization of climate funds. There are a lot of climate funding opportunities that are available. And some of these are just philanthropies. It's not just about investors. Some of them are just doing this for a good cause. And so how do you tap into that? The biggest challenge, again, is lack of knowledge, right? People don't know that we actually have these funds. So I'll ask all of you, if you can, just take out your phones and just type www.greenclimate.fund. You can check there. You'll find quite a number of available projects that you can tap into. Also within that, there are resources that can help you get ready to build projects. You will learn how to do a good possible proposal that will then attract that investment. So if you take time, read and just check up, you'll be able to tap into that, and really that will help us as an economy going forward. And then also just promoting regional cooperation. I know we're already doing it with the Southern Africa power pool. So that's an area that will help us leverage this. It's quite key. It's worked in Eastern, it's called the Eastern African Power Pool. And we're seeing this also coming on the Southern African Power Pool. How do we tap into that? Very, very key for us to jump onto that. And then lastly, looking at innovative financial instruments. So I've already spoken about one in my introduction with what we do as Namene. We are tapping into carbon credits to finance our projects. So how can you tap into those projects? It's key that all of us understand what's happening in that space. There are a number of ways you can do it. I'll not expose much. At a consulting fee, you can come and see me. But anyway, we can look at carbon projects in terms of lighting. Some of them that are quite common now, probably with the green economy, is your efficient cook stoves. We have a number of people who are jumping onto that space. Look it up, try to understand what it's about, and see how you can leverage on these existing opportunities. I think with those things mentioned, we should be moving in the right direction. Thanks.
Thank you. Carbon credits is quite topical, but let's not go there. Yarabi, over to you.
Yeah, Mulima, you may wish to know, all these projects we are discussing, at the end of the day, they will need to be licensed by the ERB. And in ensuring that there is a regulatory comfort, the ERB issues the investment endorsement for these kind of projects as they are coming. So you present your investment endorsement to the financiers that should this plant or this project comply to all these technical standards, the regulator will issue with a license. So as the ERB, we also issue that investment endorsement. You can approach the ERB, we will explain to you, and you will be able to walk away with that investment endorsement, which you can present to the financiers. You may also wish to know that as a regulator, we are responsive in developing current regulations. I will speak to open access as a new regulation which has been developed. As a developer of a project, you will not need to probably include a transmission line in a generation project. You ride the available capacity. Open access is basically use of the spare capacity on the network. So you will need to sign just agreements with the owner of the network. If it's transmission, the transmission network service provider or distribution network service providers, you sign an agreement with them through system operator, and you move your power in the existing network. So as a developer, it minimizes your cost of putting transmission lines on your power evacuation. So you do the plant where it will sit, and you can have the customer on the other end. And as you agree with your customers through the power purchase agreements, the ERB has moved now from approving the power purchase agreement as the law stipulates within 30 days to now 48 hours. You submit your power purchase agreement to the regulator, and within 48 hours you walk out with a decision from the board, an approval of your power purchase agreement. So we are moving into that space, you know, and we heard a lot on the issues of quality, product quality and the like. As a regulator, it's also our mandate to monitor the efficiency and the product quality of energy products, you know. So once you are licensed, we engage. In the license conditions we stipulate, we will be monitoring you from time to time. Where the service provider is diverging, we control, we regulate, we will clearly direct you where you are supposed to go in the energy space. So there is a lot of support you will be able to get as we are developing the projects in the green projects from the regulator. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We are running out of time. Banga, Q&A. Over to you.
Yes, I think at this moment we can have an interactive session with the participants. I'm already told we have some questions in the other room, so I'll just quickly invite whoever has a question from the other room to come and join us here. I think this is a very interesting topic. It resonates with each one of us. So we anticipate a lot of questions to come through. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Yes, my name is Mulala Weope. I'm here under the University of Zambia Business Economics Association. Yes, so I'm a third-year economist. So yes, my question actually goes to the Ministry of Green Economy. What measures have you put in place to boost the supply of the current, to help us with this energy crisis that we're having, rather? What measures have you put? Yeah, maybe if you can give us 2 or 3 examples, yeah, that we can see. Then the next one is actually going to ERB, Energy Regulation Board. So yes, we've been hearing, and we usually complain saying that Zambia usually gets maybe they say 3rd standard, 4th standard of let's say the solar equipment that we're getting, yeah? Yes, so we want to know if there's a way in which you can certify the solar panels that are being imported into Zambia, so that we're getting authentic energy. Because previously, I was in town and there was a man that was complaining saying that something is saying that it's 50,000 watts and it only lasts for 2 hours. So what measures have been put in place to check, to certify these the new technology that we have? Because we have less knowledge about it. So we're asking if you can actually implement some measures to certify the batteries and the solar panels. Yeah, I remember you talked about the batteries. Thank you very much.
What's the preference to maybe get 3 questions and then attend to them?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is George Mwanza from the University of Zambia. I personally have a question for Mr. Mlenga Chandasa. So I think you talked about awareness. So the question that I had was like, what measures that you have put in place to make sure that the media is utilized to spread awareness about the solar, about the energy sector, and then so that to make sure at least even people that are in rural areas are aware of what's actually, especially this important information that you're actually elaborating in here, which I believe is very impactful and especially to us students, and we really are grateful for the opportunity. But there are people that are very far, like in rural areas, that have got no idea of what actually happening. What measures have you put in place to spread the news, to spread the word to them also, to have this benefit that we have? Thank you.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kadani Khalifa from the University of Zambia Actuarial Science Association. And my question is directed to the engineer, Eric Musama of ERB. The discussions that we've had here are good discussions because they try to envision where we are trying to go. But my question is on time management. How is ERB making sure that in as much as we are having these fruitful discussions, they will enforce time management? Because how is an investor going to come in the nation understanding to the fact that, yes, we are going through a climate problem, but then ZESCO is not able to adhere to time management because, yes, we are having a drought. Yes, they do release a load shedding schedule. But all of us in here can attest to say they do not follow that load shedding schedule. So to the investors out there who want to come in Zambia, what's the incentive for them to come in the nation if there is no power that's even being given at the right time? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we now leave it to the panel session. Some were directed, but please do feel free if you, each one of you can contribute to a particular question. Thanks.
I'll go so that we address the quick question on time. Is Khalifa talking to time management on the load shedding schedule? We can only speak to if it comes as a complaint or from the energy consumer. We do receive that, and as a regulator, we are mandated to receive, investigate, and determine. So we'll follow through. If you have an energy complaint, if ZESCO are not sticking to the time schedules, we will. We are constantly engaging them. But also remember, we are not immune to faults just because we are in this crisis. So if there is an emergency on the network, or if there's a fault on the interconnected power system, that will also add to the outage times. So as a regulator, we do receive at the beginning of the year from the utilities, say the maintenance programs, so that we know the planned outages, how they are going to sit and how they will affect the network. Not to speak much to that. I may also tackle the question from Mulala on certification of solar products and the like. You know, as you are being licensed, there's the technical review which we'll conduct. So you present to the regulator the business proposal, which contains how you intend to conduct business in the energy sector. And some of the things we look at are the technical specs. What products are you going to be dealing with? Solar products. And we zero in now in interacting with that. We have developed standards which speaks to that. So we'll check. Will your products comply to the national standards? We develop standards in collaboration with Zambia Bureau of Standards. They're accessible at a minimal fee. So we make sure that there's adherence to those standards. And as a regulator, we do monitor compliance to these standards. And we have now moved to self-audits. The licensees are able to self-audit themselves and present a report to the regulator. Then as a regulator, we zero in. It's now called risk-based audits. We will go where the problem is. So in this case, solar products, we, in collaboration with the tax revenue, Bureau of Standards at points of entry, we are monitoring these products as they are coming in. Yeah. So now we can say there is self-assessment in terms of bringing in these products. The form, you need to stick to you declare yourself what type of products you are bringing. And that should comply to the technical standards and technical specs which products are coming in. Yeah.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I think the question that was asked is around awareness. How are we raising awareness, especially to people in the rural areas? I think there are a number of channels that we are using. Of course, we haven't done a lot, but I think a lot really needs to happen. In one of my hats, we are doing a lot. In my other hat, we haven't done much. So what we basically do is do awareness through radio. So it's not just radio in English, but we also try to localize the content, which makes it easier for people in the rural areas to understand what we are talking about. In addition to that, we work with chiefs in rural areas, and the voice of a chief is a very heavy voice within the community. Once they mention the need for something or just raising awareness, it becomes a very easy channel for us to share that information. Another key thing that we do is we work with local influencers. So be it your musicians, whoever it is in the community that's influential, they then spread that information within the community. Then it becomes easier for more and more people to know what's going on. Another key thing to do is obviously social media now. It's quite heavy. That might apply to mostly urban spaces, but even in some rural areas they can access that. So yeah, I think we can do a whole lot more, but of course some of these things require funding, which in one of my hats, that hasn't been heavy, but we've embarked on quite a number of projects. For example, there's a project we're doing with Gogla. So that in itself is helping us raise a bit more awareness. So yeah, I think the few things I've mentioned, radio, speaking to the local influencers, making sure that the content is ready for the particular market that you're in, becomes a lot easier to spread the awareness. Thanks.
Maybe I just quickly chip in as well before Philippa comes in. Just to bring a different perspective, right? One of the most effective ways of raising awareness is also by showing these communities the benefits of alternatives. Right, so if you're showing why they shouldn't chop down trees, for example, for charcoal, and instead get money from carbon credits or biodiversity credits or payment for ecosystems, that is a good way of raising that awareness and encouraging them to then shift their attitudes, shift their activities towards these more nature positive ones, even in the context of energy, right? So for us, that's one of the approaches that we've basically taken on. How can we use market-based solutions to bring out the value that is inherent in nature and in these ecosystems that these communities live amongst? And how can they derive that? And how can we make sure that the beneficiation methods or mechanisms are adequate enough to ensure that the communities themselves are benefiting from these natural resources that they live amongst? You can do all the radio campaigns and all the other things, but if people are hungry, they want to eat, right? So for me, that's fundamentally what we should target as well as a strategy towards changing these behaviors and supporting, use of renewable energy sources. And that's precisely what we're doing at Biofin. How can we make nature work for people and also work for our planet as well? Thanks.
I guess the lady will be the last, my gentleman. Benson has kind of also preempted what was supposed to be my first point. I think as government, the first, response to the crisis was just to let people know, to say these are actually the effects of climate change, to do the awareness, also, give people, or educate people on alternative sources of energy. I mean, as government, our main role is, to formulate policies, to provide that guidance. And again, I'll mention the Green Growth Strategy, which is our latest development as our latest development in policy as the ministry. I think it gives an overall guidance, on how we are able to navigate this crisis, this energy crisis. And I think the earlier points I did highlight on energy efficiency and all those things, I think are some of the things that we are looking at and are also promoting. I think we've also been trying to engage with the private sector to be more involved, to be able to invest. As I also highlighted earlier, we of course need to provide that climate. But I think we've been receiving, interests and applications in geothermal as the ministry, to offer them the technical support and to see just how we can navigate the situation. So awareness, promoting alternative sources of energy, and also just riding on the green growth strategy, and telling people like this is the guidance, as government that we can provide, and how we can navigate the current energy crisis.
Please introduce yourself. Oh, you made the welcome. Thank you.
I don't think I need to introduce myself again. To the lady who I'll ask to go again, how far are we from a regulatory standpoint and a governmental standpoint on waste to energy? Every time we talk about enhanced energy access, we always talk about solar, we talk about wind, but waste to energy is also a very important part of innovative energy access. For example, there's a multitude of countries that use human waste, recycling as a source as a source to produce electricity. We also have countries, I believe, Switzerland and Singapore, that use ash, where they purposefully burn recycling, plastic, even get ash from different manufacturing plants, turn that ash into electricity, which also helps us with our carbon footprint, helps us in a lot of different ways, but also gives us another energy access point. So how far are we from a regulatory standpoint for having waste to energy as a source for renewable energy access?
I think my first comment on that is maybe from government. I think this will relate to like circular economy, right? How do we turn this waste into energy? We have also the biomass. I think there's been low adoption on that, but I think the conversation is happening. We really don't have any regulations as per se as government in place, but that is also in the pipeline, working with the support from our cooperating partners like the EU. We are talking of how we can actually put up regulations to promote that, to also just increase the adoption. But I think at a small scale, it's happening. We have like private sector, small organizations or small companies that are setting up these businesses. So speaking for government, we don't really have regulations yet, but it's in the pipeline, and I think that will be done really, really soon.
I may just add quickly to that response. Through the Ministry of Energy, there's already an integrated resource plan which has been developed for the next 30 years. So we are going to see different forms of energies coming from different technologies coming into the grid, so that we meet the constantly increasing demand of electricity. So under the IRP, we will be able to find how this has been detailed, and it will begin to inform what kind of regulations we will need for each form. Just to speak to probably in terms of power quality, regardless of the product or the technology you are using, we do already have a framework in which power quality should be monitored, and you have to adhere to that standard. All that is to protect the consumer. We do not want to pollute or damage even your equipment as the consumer when you are interacting with energy products. I just thought I could just add that. Thank you.
Yeah, while we're at it, just a very small addition. I think I like that he brought in the integrated resource plan, because I think what's also mentioned there is the heavy need for R&D, so research and development. I think while it is that there are some players that are using, for example, ash that you had mentioned, we have very, let's say, limited capacity in understanding what exactly is going on. But with the integrated resource plan, there's a room for us to actually engage in research to understand some of those things, which then we can start applying, and obviously that will then inform policy for our colleagues here at the Green Economy. Thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Annie from UNILAS, Deputy Minister of Finance. My question is going to Biofin and under the Ministry of Green Economy. So, according to my research, World Bank just granted recently on the 15th of March 2024 initially it's a 7 million, but currently the plan for 2024 to 2026 is 100 million into improving ZESCO. But if we look at, we're looking at long-term solutions. Why aren't we using that amount that we're being given for maybe, let's say, wind energy or solar energy? Why are we focusing on the hydro type of situation when we know that we're actually facing challenges with the hydro? We're having droughts and everything. So this is a step that we need to take, where we need to consider alternatives such as wind energy or solar energy. But we're given this amount and it's being allocated back to ZESCO that's using hydro. So as government, why didn't this go to those alternatives so that we can have a sustainable energy supply? That's my question. Thank you.
Madam Moderator, how many more questions can we accommodate? Seems to be getting more and more interesting.
You see, when you talk about energy access, and then, remember I said it's relatable. Everyone here is feeling the effects of load shedding. I don't see any burning questions. I haven't seen them. Okay, can we allow two more panelists? Okay, thank you. They're excited about the questions.
Thank you very much. My name is Chewe Jorwe Mulenga. I am a teacher of civic education. I come from the rural parts of Zambia. And then I've, in my area, our experience are cases of ZESCO cables being stolen and vandalism on ZESCO infrastructure. Can it be associated with the long hours of having load shedding? Maybe people know that they can actually cut cables, there is no electricity and such things. And if it's associated with that, are there any awareness programs that are being done so that we can protect our infrastructure? And then so that we don't also have accidents resulting from such activities? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Levi Zulu from the University of Lusaka. I'm an accounting student and I'm the publicity secretary for the School of Business. So my question goes to Mr. Benson, sir. How can you ensure that energy access projects financed through innovations are sustainable in the long term? Thank you.
Panelists, this is your opportunity to also say your last words. So if you please, Rabi, you can go.
Let it be ladies first.
Philippa, you're popular.
Thank you, my gentlemen. They are all gentlemen. Yeah, I think, thank you for having us here, Mulima. This was a really a nice session. I hope it was informative enough and people have learned something, and appreciate what the ministry is doing in terms of energy and our transition into a green economy. And also just to mention, to say, I think Benson will take the last two questions on the World Bank 100 mil and the last question that was raised by the gentleman. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for having me.
Madam Philippa, I didn't say that you start closing. Gentlemen, can you respond to the questions? Benson, I think the last one is quite interesting. I think you can speak to that. Then Chanda and engineer will speak to that, to the other questions also. Yeah.
Yeah. Probably let me pick one from Mr. Mulenga on vandalism and accidents arising from this. You know, energy infrastructure. First of all, it is our infrastructure because it's delivering a service to us, and it has to be protected at all costs. I will give an example of when a line is moving from point A to point B, there is land which we call a well-leave. A well-leave has to be protected. That land, you cannot do anything under the well-leave. And what more, getting close to that. So it's a crime going to vandalize an energy infrastructure. And the law would definitely take its course on the offenders in that manner. But to also avoid the accidents, under the Electricity Act, Section 20 and 21, it speaks to reporting these instances by the service providers. As the accidents and instances are happening in their networks, they are mandated to report to the regulator. And we do take investigations to at least determine what could be the cause leading to that. Is it negligence? But if it comes out that it's public, just vandalism, it comes back to the awareness we are discussing here. And as the ARB, we are equally heavy on that. We're targeting school-going children. We are holding town hall meetings, speaking to these matters of energy-related issues. So as the regulator, we are equally actively engaged in awareness to just deter even the would-be offenders in the in these acts of vandalizing the energy. There was also a point from Madam Annie on just focusing on hydro. Just to mention probably that we have already seen some solar development coming in under ZESCO in Chisamba. ZESCO, they have formed under the SPV, Kariba North Bank extension, and they have started developing 100 megawatts of solar power plant in Chisamba. So at least that is a project we can already be talking to. And in no time, under 6 months, in the next 6 months or so, we may begin to get panel installation and generating, feeding into the grid at Kawe Step Down. So the diversification from just hydro is there, and there is need to also focus on other forms of energies so that come the next crisis of this kind, let the country be best prepared to handle it. So we are picking these important lessons, and I'm sure even focusing where finances should go. The financiers have seen where gaps are, and definitely they can add more financing in the greening of the energy sector. Thank you.
Okay. I'll try to help Benson answer the question on making sure that the projects that we embark on are sustainable. Then I'll let him add whatever he would like to add. So I've worked in the NGO space some years ago, and the drive around the NGOs was, when we go into these communities, let's build schools for them. And then over time, we started to discover that that was not feasible, that was not efficient. So how do we work around a situation where this continues? Because obviously some investors, some funders were withdrawing money from investing into that. So how do we then make it feasible? So first thing is you involve the community members. and have them be in a space where they're actually contributing something to that particular item. So for example, the scenario I'm giving around schools is we went in and said, you guys need to start molding blocks. So it's something that they're doing, and it reduces on the costs that we are already incurring. So that's very, very key and helps something get, let's say, become sustainable in a very long time. And people actually continue using something that they know they have spent their time on and they have spent their energies on. I think for any project or any investment, before it actually happens, it's very, very key to check the environmental impact in that particular project. Once you've done your assessments, you've done your feasibility studies, that sort of starts to frame what then becomes your sustainable project. You will not get into a project where you have not done a proper feasibility study. So that in itself will guarantee that this is going to be long-term and it's sustainable, because you've done a study and that helps. Apart from that, you also just have to check your technical aspects. You also have to check and really involve the communities and the economy. For anything to work, if you want to embark on a project, having some experience working in rural areas, you don't just move in and impose a project. Once you impose a project, you see a lot of withdrawal from them, and that might not be sustainable. So what do you want to do? You want to make sure that they're the ones who have, let's say, the drive. You just give an idea. This is what we want to do. What are your thoughts? Once they've put in effort, there is value in that particular thing. Listening to what you're saying about ZESCO and how that people are stealing and whatnot, what was the level of involvement in it happening? Probably minimal. They probably don't know the repercussions of what they were doing, right? And that's why it's key that every investment that we embark on, or whatever it is that we do, we involve the communities to some degree. Once they feel that they own this particular initiative, it becomes very, very hard for them to either try to vandalize or do anything that's outside it. So I think basically that's what I would like to add on that. So Benson, over to you.
Thanks a lot for that, Mlenga. And I think just to add on, and obviously maybe to break it out a bit more, because sustainability, it's a broad concept. I don't want to assume, so, because there's financial sustainability, and then there's sustainability from an ESG perspective. So in terms of financial sustainability, it's really how bankable the project is, right? So in the context of the innovative financing solutions that I've spoken about, if they were being deployed into a project, there's an assessment period that essentially comes before the investment actually happens. So there's an appraisal period where if it's a bond, your brokers and other transaction advisors essentially crunch numbers. So they hire all these really smart people to do financial models of the project under different parameters, different scenarios, and then essentially they demonstrate that the project is bankable. It makes commercial sense, right? Only then is when you'll be able to let or allow investors to come in and make an investment. Without that bankability aspect from a financial perspective, it will be very difficult for you to sell that project to investors. So by the time they're investing, most likely they've done their math and they've been able to demonstrate, and you as the project developer has been able to demonstrate that it's financially sustainable as a project. It makes sense commercially. And then from the ESG perspective, right, in the context of, say, a green bond, there's a process. And that's essentially where the green bond guidelines come in that the Securities and Exchange Commission promulgated in 2019-2020. They detail how exactly a project is supposed to be screened in order to ensure that it is indeed sustainable from an environmental, social, and governance perspective, right? Particularly around environmental, because it's the green bond guidelines. So there, a developer would have to come up with what's called a green bond framework. So this framework is a document that stipulates how that issuer is going to govern the process of a green bond issuance. So it speaks to how you're going to use the proceeds, what exactly are you going to use them for. And that's very important because it has to go to something that has environmental benefit. How you're going to manage the project selection into your project portfolio for that issuance to be able to be deployed towards. How you're going to allocate those funds. And most importantly, to answer your question, how you're going to report on your sustainability matrix, right? So whether you're going to do monthly, quarterly, annual reporting to your investors. Remember, when you borrow money from a green bond, you're saying that you're going to use it for something that is environmentally positive. So after they give you that money, you have to report. In the same way that you do financial reporting when you borrow, you also have to do sustainability reporting, right? So you explain that we had said that we want to reduce so many carbon emissions. We've deployed the money. This is the emissions that we've reduced in year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on, right? So that way, there's that mechanism that ensures that there's no greenwashing where you're claiming that our is achieving all these environmentally positive attributes, and in fact, it's not. So that framework, the Green Bond Guidelines, ensures that those monies are actually deployed towards what you indicated that you do that. So then that way, we make sure that the money is actually going towards a green initiative and it's indeed sustainable. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying up to the end. I always say that energy is a topic that has so much to cover, and more so when you introduce the financing component. I am so grateful for the panelists. Thank you for coming. I have some questions. We can take it outside. And for those of you that still have some questions, please feel free to approach them. They're quite approachable and interesting persons. So thank you so much. And I think give yourselves a hand for staying through to the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much again from the Securities and Exchange Commission. And to our partners, ZIPAR, we look forward to having such collaborations in the near future. I think it's always important to spur conversations and discourses around such important topics. I think we've come to the end of our discussion. There is room for a group photo, I understand. We can take the group photo here with the panelists and then with the broader audience just outside at the SEC. Welcome.